Good morning. And now here's our scripture for this morning from Matthew chapter 8, verses 1 through 13. When he came down from the mountain, large crowds followed him. And behold, a leper came and worshipped him, and said, "My Lord, if you wish, you can cleanse me." And Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, and he said, "I do wish it, be cleansed." And in that hour his leprosy was cleansed. Jesus then said to him, "Look, why are you telling it to men? Go and show yourself to the priests, and present an offering as Moses has commanded, for a testimonial to them." When Jesus entered Capernaum, a centurion approached him and appealed to him, saying, "My Lord, my boy is lying in the house, paralyzed and suffering greatly." Jesus said to him, "I will come and heal him." The centurion then answered, saying, "My Lord, I am not good enough for you to enter under the shadow of my roof. But just say a word, and my boy will be healed. For I am also a man under authority, and there are soldiers under my command. And I say to this one, 'Go,' and he goes, and to the other, 'Come,' and he comes. And to my servant, 'Do this,' and he does it." When Jesus heard it, he was amazed, and he said to those who accompanied him, "Truly, I say to you, that not even in Israel have I found such faith as this. And I say to you that a great many will come from the east and from the west and sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the sons of the kingdom will be put out into the outer darkness, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth." So Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, let it be done to you according to your belief." And his boy was healed in that very hour. And now for our Valentine's Day Sunday sermon, here's Dr. Lyle.
Good morning, and happy Valentine's Day to all of you. And I guess we celebrate that tomorrow, although we can start today. But as we've looked at in the earlier part of the service, we've discussed a little bit about Valentine's Day, and certainly in our song choices, we're talking about love and that concept. Love is an important part of our lives, and it is necessary for us to recognize that and to use it in our lives. It's a good thing that we do have a day such as Valentine's Day where we celebrate the concept or the idea of love, because for many people, they allow the cares of the world to get in the way, and especially at times like this where things are a little bit more difficult for the average person out there. Some might have lost their jobs. They find it difficult to maintain an expression of love. It has to be part of our being. And I think what's happened to those that seem to lose it rather easily is that their life is not grounded well in God. The grounding of your life within God is the single most important thing that leads us through the concepts of love and happiness and brings us to the ability to express them even in times of strife. Reverend Ken chose a wonderful scripture this morning. We're dealing with a couple of miracles that had taken place. The first reference has to do with coming down from the mountainside, so we can assume that Jesus was in prayer and meditation, had achieved a rather high state at that point, and someone infirm in body came and was healed. The idea of leprosy, a blight, was taken out of their life and was gone. And Jesus admonished him basically to go and give thanks. Go and be thankful for what has taken place in your life. The second thing that happens is we know that there's a centurion that comes in, and the centurion has a member of the family that's gravely ill. And from the looks of it, it's someone very close to him. We're referring to a son, that's about as close as you can get, and that was bothersome for those of us that are fathers. I think the scripture reads servant, but I think that it's someone that he views as much more closely as he's out there attempting to find the solution to the problem. Now, something's gone on in this particular individual's life that he has come to the conclusion that there's a very close connection between Jesus and the creator of this universe. However he views that, he's not only has figured it out, but he's accepted as a fact within his consciousness that Jesus is an individual that can accomplish this. And not only does he accept it as someone that can accomplish the healing that he wishes to take place, but he has such a reverence and such an awe for that individual that he considers himself completely unworthy of what's about to take place. But not only does he consider himself unworthy, he's absolutely assured that this particular individual, Jesus, can make this happen merely by saying the word. And this particular scripture has to do with the idea of faith and the certainty that there is in faith. We're all taught that faith is a connecting link between hoping and knowing. We know that there's a definition of faith that has to do with the acceptance of an unexpressed reality and accepting it as a fact certain. And here the unexpressed reality was that the servant would be healed. The acceptance of that was an absolute certitude in his mentality, absolute certitude. There wasn't an idea or a thought that it couldn't happen. There was the knowledge that it could, if Jesus so willed it. And so within our lives, we can take this as part of what goes on. But, underneath all of that, that centurion had to have a tremendous belief in God, had a tremendous, in his own life, somehow, through his own expression, had come to a point of love for what the creative force was all about. Or he couldn't come to this certitude that another human being walking around on the planet that was not of his own kind could make this happen. And certainly within that centurion's life, there were physicians, there were surgeons, there were all sorts of medical people that he could go to amongst his own people, and he chose not to do that. In fact, he knew that the answer wasn't there. So something had happened within his consciousness that took him to a different place. Most of us can profit from that a great deal if we can accept the attitude that he had arrived at, and that could not be arrived at without a concept of love. There had to be love involved in this situation. And I think love is a starting point that gets us to where we need to go. Faith is also part of that starting point. But we must look at faith not, I think Jesus' reference to the idea of faith was the idea of a mustard seed that grows into this tremendous plant that becomes very, very large. That's what faith is about. It can be a small seed or a kernel, but because of the certitude, the nature of it, that when you plant that, it's going to multiply, because of that certitude, it becomes much larger. And as we can allow that to be that way within our lives, to have the faith that we have in God, the love that we have, and have that faith and love and understanding that that creative force is within each of us, then we can understand that we can be an expression of that, and we can bring much more to those around us. And that much more that we bring is simply the expression of love, because that's all that Jesus expressed in this situation. A love and a caring for a fellow human at that time, and for the suffering that that person was going through. He had the knowledge, because of his connection with the Father and his love for his Father and himself, that he could accomplish this. That's why he offered to go. And he found that because another had great faith, he didn't even have to make the journey. But he was willing to make the journey. And we have to assume that it was with an individual he didn't even know. It's just someone that came to ask for help. And he was willing to step out and take the journey and make it happen. The result was it happened without having to take the physical journey. And so we're introduced to another type of healing here, a healing that takes place by a meeting of the minds. This meeting of the minds that took place was between the centurion and Jesus. And we know later in Scripture we have where two or more are gathered together in my name. And so there was an absolute bonding here of their mentalities, of the accomplishment of a certain fact that took place. If we can remember that in our lives for anything that we wish to do, if we could just remember to have faith to the point of certitude, to have a meeting of the minds with those that we're working with. We spend too much time in strife, too much time arguing, too much time people wanting their side to be presented on somebody else's, that their attitude is right, someone else's is wrong. There's just way too much time in that. There's no discussion here between Jesus and the individual involved about their religion, their philosophical beliefs. None of that's going on. None of that's going on. You know, they don't come from the same culture, they aren't the same type of people, they didn't have the same background, they didn't have the same training. In fact, they're just like polar opposites. And none of that is an issue. None of that is an issue because of the sincerity of what takes place between them, and because of both of their belief, knowledge, and certitude. If we within our lives can take situations, see solutions, have that solution in our mentality to this point of certitude, and then we bring it into expression through the expression of love, we bring it into reality, we can accomplish a great deal. So for Valentine's Day, we get to think about that. We get to think about what happened here in the Scripture, how it took place, what really happened, you know, and that it's not different for us. We're no different. This is set forth as an example of what can happen by a true expression of faith. Not, and I'm not, there's nothing wrong with the idea of I believe God exists, or I believe this, or I believe that, but just simply the thought or idea that, okay, that's my belief and it may or may not be true, that doesn't work. That's not what this is about. This is about belief to the point of certitude. That even, you know, I haven't seen a couple of those films over there at the theater, but I know they're playing there. I know that's happening. I know I drive by and I know to the point of certitude when I see a sign up says this is now showing that it's showing. You know, I don't have to go in and physically see it to understand that it's happening. I know it, and I accept that fully. And yet we walk around this planet and all of this is going on and people don't believe that there's some sort of creative force. I don't get it. The signs are all over the place. Anyhow, another note is, you know, I don't know if you guys know, I'm sure you noticed, walking up the little walkway, our little wildflowers are in bloom again, and we have to take our picture of that. But I just love those things, and yes, we'll have to cut it soon, but I have this I see these flowers, and I love the, what's going on out there, and it happens every year, and it's just part of the thing. But it is Valentine's Day. We have our flowers, and, let's just go through the week and take every situation that we have in front of us and apply a little stronger conviction to what it is that we can do with that. With those thoughts in mind, let us go on and join me in the acceptance statement. Now may the light illumine our mind with wisdom. May love fill our heart with understanding. May the one life shine forth from our innermost being, so that we walk renewed in light, life, love, today, tomorrow, and forever.